So in our very first episode of Nerd Rushmore, we're talking about sci-fi and fantasy captains and why I think these guys are the best. So what is the Rushmore argument? So the Rushmore argument is something that me and my friends and people around the world use in pop culture and sports to determine who are the best in a particular genre or in a particular field, i.e. something along the lines of who are the best 4 basketball players of all time, or who are the best 4 sci-fi villains of all time, or who are the best 4 Doctor Who companions. You can do any type of structure with this, and the nice thing is that you don't have to narrow it down to just one person. Most of the time you're like, these 4 are in the conversation as the best. I'm not putting them in any kind of order. So what we're going to do here on Bowling Nerd is every couple weeks we're going to do a Rushmore of a specific topic, and this week's topic is sci-fi and fantasy captains. Remember, these are in no particular order, so I'm just going to go down the list. Another thing is that these are strictly personal. Some of these are sometimes just very much people that I enjoy. Sometimes I'm being very objective in why I think they should be included on this list based on a body of work, based on their place in sci-fi or fantasy lore. So keep that in mind. I imagine there's going to be a lot of disagreement. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I want to see what you guys think down in the comments. I want to hear about what you have to say. I'm always up to debating these things, so let's just go ahead and get into it. So the first person that I have on the list, and I feel like one of the most obvious ones right now, is Captain America. So Captain America has been around for a long time. This is nothing new, but lately, obviously, over the past decade or so, we've had movies where Captain America has gotten the spotlight. We've had 3 Captain America movies that have been really successful: Captain America the First Avenger, Captain America and Winter Soldier, and Captain America Civil War. But these aren't the only reason why I think Cap is the best. Cap is the best, honestly, because of the values that Cap holds and his loyalty and what people will do to fight for him as a captain. So Captain America's character, just a brief bit about his origin story. His name is Steve Rogers and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And what ended up happening is he was actually a very scrawny kid, and he ended up getting his powers, or his increased agility and combat skills, from a serum that he was given during World War II. He ends up getting frozen in ice and then defrosted later and becomes a member of the Avengers. And this is honestly probably the main point that I feel makes Cap one of the best captains, is because he controls and manages this team. And the Avengers is not an easy team to manage. You have a lot of heavy hitters, you have a lot of huge egos, you have a lot of uncontrollable elements. And to be able to manage these egos and these huge personalities and have them trust you and be able to go into battle is crazy. Like, how would you manage the Hulk, a Wolverine, an Iron Man, a Black Widow? Like, how do you manage all of those different type of personalities and still go into battle and go into the fight and be successful? And he does this constantly. But one of the other things that I like about Cap, which I actually really don't like about other characters, is that Cap seems to be a person who will not compromise his values. I don't really like this quality in a lot of superheroes. For example, Superman. I hate this quality in Superman. It's really annoying and it's really frustrating, but it's only frustrating because Superman is a god, and him having that uncompromising moral code is something that then makes, in my opinion, the story boring. One of my favorite Superman comics is Injustice because he compromises, and although that's not canon, I love that story because it makes Superman's character a little bit more believable to me. Otherwise, I don't enjoy Superman's character, and I don't enjoy that value in a superhero. I do somewhat enjoy it in Cap, and here's the reason why I enjoy it in Cap, is because Cap is human. Cap can be killed. He gets killed in, like, Civil War, for example. Cap gets killed. Like, there's ways that he can be hurt. He can't just overcome it with, oh, I have this new power, oh, I'm stronger than everybody. Along with that, when we're just looking at current superhero universes, obviously, I think that Cap actually has 2 of the best movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, being Captain America Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War. Those are 2 of my favorite movies in the MCU and 2 of my favorite superhero movies of the modern superhero era. So I really enjoy him for that fact. These are my reasons why. It mostly has to do with he's Captain of the Avengers. I think that this is a big deal. I put him on this list because of that. I debated putting Batman on this list for the same reason, because of the Justice League, but there's no way that I can call Batman a quote-unquote captain, even though he leads the Bat family and he leads the Justice League. Calling him a captain is really kind of a weird thing, so I couldn't put him on this list. So Cap's on this list for that reason. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What are the reasons do you think Cap is one of the best captains of all time? Let me know if you think that I'm completely and totally off base. I would love to talk to you guys about it. Obviously, I have more opinions about this, but I just want to make this as brief as possible so we can get to some of the other characters. So the next person I have on the list is Han Solo. So you never hear Han actually called a captain. But he is a captain. By the traditional term, he has his own ship. Technically, he has a crew. That crew happens to be one Wookiee, and then every once in a while you have a Rey or a Luke or a Leia on the ship doing some stuff. But, I mean, he only really has one character that is his actual crew, but he still has a ship, and he, quote-unquote, captains that ship. And there are a lot of reasons why I feel he is one of the best captains, and basically in the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars universe doesn't work. The rebellion loses if it's not for Han Solo. So from the outset, what ends up happening is Han is immediately a person who is valuable for the rebellion. Even if they're not talking about the rebellion, even if Luke and Han and Obi-Wan and Leia are not just currently active during this mission that they have, or during this escape that they're having on the Death Star, even though they're not part of the rebellion there, he's still doing things that are useful. One, he gets Luke off Tatooine. Like, that's the first thing. Like, you're getting the main character, the person who ends up ending the Empire, off of Tatooine. So that's the biggest thing that he does first. And then at the end of that movie, what he ends up doing is he ends up coming back and shooting Darth Vader out of the trench so that Luke can fire his shots down the hole in the Death Star to blow up the Death Star. Without those two incidents in this movie, the rebellion loses. And that is one of the reasons why I think Han is one of the best captains in sci-fi, is because he's in the right place at the right time, which is very important, in my opinion, for captains. Strategically, you have to be in the right place. Granted, you could say that Han is lucky. Sure, maybe he's lucky, but even if he is lucky, he's still, in this universe, is a person who does a lot for continuing the rebellion to go along. Even in Return of the Jedi, he takes a mission onto Endor that nobody else really wants to take. He's like, I'm not going to volunteer anybody, but a bunch of people volunteer to go with him. In The Force Awakens, he also goes to the Starkiller base because he's trying to take it out. He ends up dying in that scenario, but, you know, he's still taking on these missions that nobody else will take on. Granted, that makes him a little bit reckless, but you gotta be a little bit reckless sometimes to be captain. I have another person on this list who's kind of a little bit reckless that I see as a good captain. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing that every once in a while you're just gonna have to fly by the seat of your pants and don't know what's going to happen. The other reason why I enjoy Han Solo personally so much is obviously Han shot first, because he did. The other thing that I really enjoy, he probably has the best line in sci-fi that I've heard, when Leia says, I love you, and then Han says, I know. Like, I remember the first time seeing that, and I was like, that's amazing. It still cracks me up to this day, so I still think that that's one of the best lines in sci-fi. So let me know what you think. Do you think that Han is a captain? Because you might just disagree on this principle in general. Does he deserve to be on this list? If he is not deserving to be on this list, who would you put ahead of him on this list, or who would you put in his place? I'd love to know what you think down in the comments. So my next character that I enjoy, and this is just a personal thing for me, and personally having that I enjoy, is Captain Jack Harkness. And one of the reasons why I enjoy Captain Jack Harkness is because I'm a big fan of Doctor Who, and he is one of the, in my opinion, better companions on Doctor Who. And for this reason, I'm going to be putting him on this list instead of my companions list. So we're just going to go into it on why I think that Captain Jack is the best. So for one of the reasons I think Captain Jack is on the list is because I enjoy the companions in Doctor Who give the most impact when it comes to the actual objective, which most of the time the actual objective of that show is you have to save the world and or universe. And one of the things that Captain Jack does consistently on his own from multiple different angles is he's constantly in a situation where he's either doing things on his by himself, he's leading a group of people without the Doctor, or he is doing things like leading Torchwood. So I honestly think that this is one of the big criteria that makes him one of the best captains, because in this universe, especially where you have this quote-unquote Time Lord who can do anything, who can solve any problem. Captain Jack manages to keep up. There are very few characters in Doctor Who canon that can keep up with the Doctor on any level. So for me, that's one of the reasons why he is so important. Other reason why he's so important is because he basically becomes immortal, and that actually puts him in situations where he can do a lot of things that other people cannot do, because you can't kill him. If you kill him, he dies for like a second and then he comes back to life. And it just keeps happening, keeps happening, keeps happening. He ends up turning into a character called the Face of Bo, which is a huge character within the Doctor Who story arc. Obviously, he has a spin-off show, Torchwood, where he's leading this quote-unquote government group in the fight against alien activity on the planet Earth. So that show and that organization obviously gets intertwined in Doctor Who. So this is going to segue into the final captain on this list, and that is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Captain Picard is by far the superior officer over Kirk. Like, it's hands down, it's not even funny. So I understand that I'm not ranking him within my Rushmore, but if I'm ranking Starship captains, if I'm ranking anybody in the Star Trek universe, Captain Picard, hands down, come at me, bro. So, one of the reasons why I enjoy Captain Picard is because, in my opinion, Captain Picard is the epitome of Star Trek. He is Star Trek. With Jean-Luc Picard, you have an intellectual, you have a man who is curious about the universe, responsible for the flagship of the Federation. His mission is to seek out new life and new civilization, and that's what he does, and he does it so well. He's not a person who's running around the cosmos kissing every alien that he needs to possibly kiss for no freaking reason at all. Like, I just don't understand why Kirk does that. But he's not one of those characters going that. He's very much a diplomat. He's responsible for a lot of the diplomacy and the things that happen in the background of the entire Star Trek universe. The big things that he does, and the three big notes that I'm going to bring to this are Q, we have the Klingons, and we have the Borg. Okay? These are all three completely separate type of quote-unquote aliens. You have Q, who is a deity. He's basically just a mischievous deity. You could call him a Loki-type character. Like, he really doesn't care. Nothing is going to really affect him. He is God. He can do anything. He can manifest anything that he wants. You have the Klingons, who are a species that are basically the strongest survives and the strongest rules. Which makes an interesting dynamic with the current state of the Federation. And then you have the Borg, who are basically, our way is our way, we are seeking perfection, you will be assimilated, resistance is futile. And how Picard managed to handle all of these enemies is completely and totally unique than I can say any other captain would be able to do. So I don't think any captain would be able to handle these three separate things. And he looks at it from every single angle, and then he tries to make the best decision. He doesn't just jump in, he doesn't just barge in, he's always reeling everybody back and being like, hey, let's think about this from an intellectual perspective before we go just rushing in, firing. That's never his first resort. He's always, what's the angle, what's the best angle that I can play? Which is necessary for people like Q and the Klingons. Q is just pure anarchy. It's like Old Testament God. He doesn't care what happens at all to anyone. It's just, everything is just his plaything. It's just a game to him. And Picard still manages, for example, like in the very first episode of the show, prove that the human race is good to this deity who's threatening to wipe the human race from existence. With the Klingons in the next generation, what ends up happening is Jean-Luc Picard ends up becoming, as a human, someone the Klingons respect, which is not something that you see a lot from different humans in the Star Trek universe. You don't see that. You don't see them respecting a human officer. So it's interesting to see how he's able to do that. I'm not just talking about Worf either. I'm talking about Gowron and Klingons like that. So it's interesting to see that he's able to work in and be diplomatic with this species that's very much a conquering species and always looking to fight first. And then you have the Borg. And the Borg can't, and this is why, because those two situations require diplomacy, they require a unique set of skills. But then when it comes down to it, if you need to be a brawler, if you need to go in with your fists punching, if you need to know what's happening, you have the Borg, and he handles the Borg better than anybody handles the Borg, except for maybe Captain Janeway, and that's only specifically because Captain Janeway's arc is almost has a lot of Borg intertwined into it. So if you look at Picard and how he's able to handle that, at one point he becomes a Borg and comes back. Like, that's the first thing. And after that, he has a lot of information on how to fight the Borg and what to do with the Borg, and he understands them completely. He understands that there's no reasoning, there's no logic. We have to defeat them to keep our civilization alive. And that is one of the reasons there why I think Picard is the best. He is so smart and so skilled and so talented, yet there's no ego that we see in this show from him. He's very much a man who is focused and determined, and his crew is absolutely loyal to him. They will fight for him. They will fight to get him back till the bitter end, and he doesn't compromise on what he believes. He goes up against Starfleet admirals all of the time because he thinks that they're wrong. He gets threatened to be court-martialed, and he's like, no, I know that this is right. I know that you are wrong, and risks his career to do the right thing. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy Captain Jean-Luc Picard so much, is because I enjoy the show Star Trek and what it is about. I honestly think that it's a show about being a good person, and of all the characters ever in that show, I believe Jean-Luc Picard is the person who personifies that in the best way. So let me know what you think. I know there are a lot of people who are going to be like, no, Kirk is better than Picard. Well, if you think that, come at me, bro. I would love to talk to you about this in the comments. I would love to see what you guys think about my 4 here. I got a couple honorable mentions. That my honorable mentions would be Mal Reynolds from Firefly, and then Captain Marvel from the Marvel Universe. I think those are both great characters. So those are my honorable mentions. If you have any interest in talking about them, let me know down in the comments. If you think that I've missed somebody, also let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys think. And this is my first episode of Nerd Rushmore. I'm going to be doing another one here soon, and that's going to be on my favorite Doctor Who companions. So stay tuned for that. Make sure, if you have not yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be putting new videos out every single week. Nerdly news, reviews, Nerd Rushmore, and then obviously in the next couple weeks we have a lot of awesome stuff coming out with Comic-Con. So Comic-Con is happening next week, so stay tuned because there's going to be a lot that I cover over that weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. My name's Oscar Hampton. Later days.